and it was in honor of our guest today. He is the CEO of DCP Entertainment. I feel like I'd be like, I gotta join a fraternity or something. Like when I do this, it's like DCP. You know, Chris Colbert is here with us today, and I'm so excited to bring him on. So let's wait no further. Let's bring on Chris Colbert.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Oh, the Baltimore club is bringing me back. I'm here in New York City right now, but I'm originally from the Baltimore area, so you brought me back right there. All I needed was the perculator, and
Oh no, you want the percolator? Look, man, that's that song right there. Now that's that song. Hey, that's. I actually did an audition. I used to like do these little auditions where I was trying to be like a background dancer and stuff, and the song I had to dance to in this hotel, my parents were there watching, and I'm dancing to it's time for the percolator. And I'm just like pop locking, you know, doing all that stuff. But yeah, so I like that song.
my little brother knows how to actually do the percolator. I'm just like you. I'm just gonna vibe out.
Yeah, just gonna vibe out. So do you? So I don't know. I mean, I know things are different now, but you know, back in the day, 2007, 2008, 9. You know, were you on the party scene, or what was that like for you?
So it's funny being from Baltimore. I did that. So Baltimore was me as a child. Like my whole adult life has been in the New York area. So
yeah,
I never really got out into the clubs like that. Like technically there was those underage clubs, but my mom wouldn't let me go out to any of that stuff, man. She's like,
yeah,
I couldn't even go to the mall and hang out, let alone go to the club at night. So
oh man, hey, look, moms was on to something. You know what I mean? Because the way, I mean, like, you know, we didn't see. I don't know how it was in New York or in Baltimore, like as a young kid, but in Somerville, South Carolina, we used to run the streets. You know, it's in the country, so we out there running the streets on trackside, wherever, and nobody really messed with like the kids over there. You know, kids would just go out and play. But it's so different nowadays, right?
Oh, definitely. And yeah, I think my mom made the right choice. Like, you know, I got into some stuff in college and I realized why I shouldn't have been getting into stuff in high school because, woo.
Come on now. Hey, that's real though. And I think that's the beautiful part about life is that, you know, as you get older, you start to understand, you know, why your parents did, you know, certain things. And, you know, but now it's like, it's crazy. My wife was just telling me that there was a school shooting like at an elementary school that just happened. And the boy was in like middle school or so that went back and shot the kids at the elementary school. Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear about that yet.
Yeah, like that's I'm just like, she told me that when I got in the house. I was like, get out of here. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And to your point, like I've been like today, it's just been like I've been in the work silo. I did an interview earlier today. I've been in my email. So like I haven't even come up for air to see what's been happening in the world. But I feel like every week there's just something else that pops off, whether it be in a school or, you know, just some kind of, you know, situation that needs all of our attention. But there's just so much going on at all times. It's just tough to keep up with everything.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a fact. And you know, to speak on that this whole area right here, you know, when you talk about Say Their Name, and that's your docuseries that you guys are doing, and I listened to an episode, and I was amazed, you know, by how you presented. Number one, I was amazed because it brought me in like you meant for it to do, right? Like you meant for, you know, the for people to be brought in even by your approach and how you start off, you know, your show. I think that's amazing. And then, you know, to go in and have these authentic conversations with the families of people who are victims of, you know, it wouldn't be, let's say, this elementary school, but I mean, people that are victim of police brutality, you know, and they end up dying at the hands of police officers. You know, it's just awesome that you guys are doing that. So I just wanted to mention that while we were here. And while we're here, I like to do things different depending on the guests and stuff. I like to have authentic conversations. So, you know, but while we're here, let's talk about like Say Their Name. And while we're talking about this elementary school shooting, and like you said, things are happening all the time. How do you, number one, not allow those things that you are researching and sharing from Say Their Names to Say Their Name to kind of dilute your positivity, you know, because I know a lot of that can be draining. How do you keep that mind, a positive mindset and all of that?
I think it's a great question. And it's funny. It's a question that I've asked, so I'm fortunate to be friends with Ben Crump, and it's something I've asked him at times.
Wow.
So actually, when we first started this series, I called him. I'm like, how do you do this on a regular basis? Like, how do you take care of yourself mentally and emotionally? Because you're in the thick of it. He's in it much more than I am. And so one of the things he told me was like, for him, it's he looks at his son and realizes what he is doing this for. And so that's what keeps him going. I don't have any children. I don't have a significant other. So my motivation just in life in general has been like, my life's ppurpose is all about helping others. And it's about also helping others find their purpose. But in particular, when it comes to Say Their Name, we looked at this when we were first figuring out what this series could be and what all the elements behind it would be. It was that we wanted to memorialize these individuals who are no longer here to tell their stories, or even if they are here to tell their stories, a lot of times these people are victimized. When the police, brutalizes somebody, a lot of times you run with that police narrative. And I say the media runs with that police narrative, and we tend to follow suit because, who else are we going to get the information from? And that's where we come in. We're here to give you more information directly from the families, directly from the communities, not just on what happened to them, but what was their life trajectory on? What was their sense of humor like? What was this family's background? Because it gives you context that allows you to humanize these people, humanize these families that are still here, so you can see yourself and your loved ones within these stories. And so to answer your question, that's part of what helps me keep going and helps me not internalize it so much and focus so much on the negative. I think about the positives that we're having on these families, giving them a chance to have a platform that they don't have anywhere else, and not taking them out of context and trying to do clickbait. We very much give them not full control, because we're not letting them
let them run the show,
as much control as they can have with their with their technical abilities. But we say to them, if we're interviewing you and we ask you a question, you're not comfortable answering it, or maybe you answered something and you said, you know what, I shouldn't have said that's going to hurt my court case, or that can get me in trouble, we're going to take that out. We have no problem with that. And even if you think about it months down the road, we're going to take it out. We're not trying to mess up anything. We're trying to give you a platform. And so that is one of the pieces. And then the other piece is, because we're helping tell these stories in such a complete way, and that ongoing journey for justice, we're helping educate people on what it is that they're up against, especially if you happen to find yourself in this situation down the road. And also looking at it around the country, it's not just one city or one state. So how are all these laws different, but at the same time still affecting our communities in the same kind of ways, in terms of just that negative impact, especially on Black communities and also Latinx communities? And so I also think of this as a community service of helping future families. And also what we're, now, because we've done so much work with these families, with different lawyers, we're now working behind the scenes to figure out what are additional resources we can bring to these families and these communities that's going to bring accountability for when these situations happen, but also hopefully, start to at least lessen these incidents from happening, if not stop them altogether.
Yeah, man, that's why it's an award-winning podcast or docuseries podcast. Like that's why, like, there's so much to unpack in there. And I told myself, like, all right, when I go on this, Alan, let's, because this topic is so meaty and I want to dive into it, but I'm also going to dive into his story, folks. So, but I got to stay here though. I got to stay here real quick, because this is so important and it's so necessary for people to know that this podcast is out there and that Chris is attached to it, based on what he just told us there, and when you think about, the way media puts out information and then we latch onto it. Oh, someone drives into the White House area, right? And what's
Miriam Carey.
Miriam.
Yep, Miriam Carey.
Miriam Carey, right?
2000.
Miriam Carey.
That was
2013, I think.
Oh, 13. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
2013, because I was listening, so I was watching that one. I forgot her name and Say Their Name. I guess that's why it's so important too, because we have to make them. We have what is it? Moralize them, right? We have to immoralize them. We have to keep them alive and in our thoughts, and not just in our prayers. People see a post, they be like, "Oh, so and so got killed by police," or "So and so did this," and we're like, "Oh man, I'm gonna lift them up in prayer." And then the moment we say that, that's when the prayer is done. And then we go on with our lives, right? So I think it's awesome that you guys are doing that. And I know that the families are grateful for that, and so thank you for doing that, because a lot of us out here are uneducated when it comes to what is happening in our own communities. So what are some word of advice that you can give to people who are getting misinformation, and how do they stay on top of relevant and factual information.
Yeah, and you know, I think it can be tough, you know, because again, as you were just mentioning, you know, the media stories tend to, well, I guess as we both mentioned, but they tend to run with whatever that police narrative is. So it can be hard to find news stories that don't have that spin to it. I would say, as much as it's kind of a dying medium, unfortunately, you know, local news and local community news is a great place to get things. So like I come from the Baltimore area. The Afro is a Black-owned newspaper. And so like that's where I can get some differing points of view. And not to say that necessarily one is factual and one is like, because I think everybody has different perspectives. And there's one thing that you learn from talking to psychologists and things like that. Memory isn't, you know, you don't remember everything exactly the way it happened. And so it's good to get different perspectives from different viewpoints, and then you can make your own decision. But I think it's important to make sure that you're getting some of that news from some of these other outlets that aren't necessarily influenced or owned by major conglomerates, because they are really based around trying to get more views and get more clicks. And so they're going to run with whatever is sensational and whatever they just get immediately. They don't have to necessarily have time to fact check, because the police gave it to them. That was our fact checking. But once that narrative gets out there, that can be dangerous, because it's happened in the case of Jamar Clark in Minnesota. This was actually in our first season. We highlighted this, where the narrative came out that he was shot outside of an ambulance because he was out there harassing some woman after a domestic disturbance that involved him and this other woman, and that's why he ended up getting shot by police. Well, days later, it came out that no, he was not involved in a domestic disturbance. He actually was there to help his friend who was in the back of that ambulance. But now that that narrative is out there, the rest of the city, not everybody, but a good majority, had already heard the first narrative about him user, and so they can't get behind this case. They're not going to support him in the way that they would have. Eventually, you know, things slowly started to come out, but even till this day, a lot of people don't know that Jamar Clark had a lawsuit out against the same police department that killed him. Just a week earlier, he had filed a lawsuit for police brutality against that same police force. Not to say that's why he was killed. Maybe not. But the fact that people don't know that is a problem. And so that's why you have to have these outside sources to be able to help you to understand the full breadth of everything that's going on.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. Like, geez, you know, because you only know what they want you to know, in a sense. And if you don't dive deeper into it, you will never know the truth. And I feel like a lot of people are okay with not knowing the truth because it's not impacting their lives. And you mentioned earlier, like, you know, it's also good for the future because you never know if you're in that situation. My dad was just telling me back in Somerville in South Carolina that a young lady went to go pay for gas, had her daughter in the back of the car, and some guys, you know, got in the car and put the gun to the daughter's head and told her to get out the car. You know, and like, so these are traumatic events, and not just police, but like even the trauma that is happening in our own communities. We are failing to recognize that you could be victim number 5.
Oh yeah.
6,
listen, and I encourage people for that specific reason, listen to Stephon Clark's episode. Stephon Clark is someone whose name you might know because they shut down the freeway in Sacramento. They shut down a Kings game. And, you know, he was killed. Stephon Clark was killed by police, but his brother, DeMarcus, years earlier, was killed in a community incident. And so that mother has now lost children to both. She also lost a child, unfortunately, to childbirth. But like that story really encapsulates exactly what you're talking about. We are at, you know, we're having difficulties within our own community, but also with the people who are policing within our community. And that one really gives a full breadth. It also involves the foster care system. You know, these things, none of these things happen in a silo. And I think that's also the beauty of what we're able to expose within these conversations is that there is a full story that these families had before they ran into this incident. And understand their mind state and where they're going from there. You have to understand where they came from.
Come on, preach, brother. Hey, that's the realest thing, because I mean, think about our lives. Think about, you know, being the younger us, you know, and you have a traumatic experience where your cousin passes away in a very unthought of way, right? We think of life as, you know, oh, I got this, I'm going to be at this place at 70, 80 years old, but you don't know what life has in store for us, right? So can you talk about, you know, since we're talking about the trauma of others, right? But then there has to be a way for you to connect with this in your own way. So how are you able to connect with these stories, and how does it relate to your own story?
I think it's perfect how you phrase that too, because I like to say that I used my trauma to inform my life's purpose. And because I've been through certain traumatic experiences, it has allowed me to ask the right questions and have the right kind of empathy when I'm doing a Say Their Name or some other kind of project where I really have to connect on an emotional level and also keep my subject safe emotionally. One of the traumas that I've had growing up is just being around a lot of death. And I actually grew up in the suburbs of Baltimore. So it wasn't like I was in the hood and people were getting shot, but I lost people to AIDS, HIV, suicide, heart attacks, like just literally there's all these different ways. And one of them was my cousin, who was more like a brother to me. His name was Dario Colbert Pino. It's actually the initials of why we named the company DCP. Exactly. Everybody's always like, hold up, DC, like Washington, DC? No, Dario Colbert Pino. And it was my cousin. Like growing up, though we lived in different states, I would go and visit with him in Florida, and we literally used to sleep in the same bed together, and we'd stay up late at night talking about like what we would do with our careers, what we do with our life, and how we would take care of our families, and particularly our mothers, because his mother is also my godmother, and how we would do this together. Even though we have different industries that we wanted to get into, we were always going to make sure we did this together and support each other and support our families. And I think when I was 20 years old. He was 22. I was still in college at the time. He had gotten a motorcycle, and he was riding. I think it was only like a week after having this motorcycle, and hit something that made him slide. He gets thrown into a fence, and his bike just slams up against him, and he had to get airlifted out, and he never actually made it to the hospital alive. And that devastated me. It came out of nowhere. I was very far away, so it didn't even feel real for a very long time. But moving forward, that experience, and with all the deaths, and I'll kind of explain all the deaths and kind of how that really permeated my mind. But like with his particularly, it was, and I don't know if this is fully healthy, but I feel like I'm now living not only for myself, but also for him, because we said we're going to do all these things together. Until this day, I have this thing around 11/11. And so when Dario was alive, every time 11/11 would come up, he would point it out to me or his aunt or whoever's around. Like he just pointed it out. And so now, since he's passed away, almost every major decision I've made in my life, 11/11 will pop up, and it's like with this confirmation for me that this is the right move. When I started DCP, or actually when I left SiriusXM, where I was for 11 years, like it's another part of the story. But when I was there and I was going to leave, I couldn't make up my mind if I was going to leave. And finally, I think me and my mother were at the American Black Film Festival, and we were leaving one of the shows, and I just said out of nowhere, I'm like, you know what? It's time to leave. And she goes, look up. I looked up, it was 11/11 on this big clock in the middle of Miami. And it's just, I feel like he is still here helping guide me. And just because I mentioned it, the whole thing around death for me is that because I was surrounded by so much death early on in life, and most of them being Black men under the age of 50, I very much felt like, okay, there's a lot I need to accomplish in a short amount of time. And it's not necessarily that I think I'm going to die early. I also more so feel like everybody around me is going to die. And so I need to accomplish these things while I can, celebrate these wins with those around me. You don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. And so, that I use that trauma though now as a way to be able to connect with some of these different families. Though I didn't lose mine, through police violence, it does help as I'm having these conversations to be able to relate on losing a loved one, so suddenly. Especially early in life.
Thank you for sharing that, Chris. And and that's like, when you think about sharing people's stories, and that's why I love the Purpose Pod, is like being able to hear that side of his story, because you have the professional, and I love the professional, but I really love the personal story, like, because like you said, everyone has a story. What was their story before this moment? When these moments, they like you said, your cousin was a week later, and instantly my friend Marquise, when I read that about your cousin, when I read that, I was heartbroken, because I could relate. I could relate, because when I was about 12 years old, my friend Marquise got hit by a car right in front of my eyes. Like we were riding our bikes across the street, Central Avenue, to go get some candy and some juice boxes, and we was about to go back and play some more football, kickball, whatever we was doing outside that day. And this green Mustang, when you think you can beat a car across, you can get across the road in time, I saw him get on his bike, and this green Mustang hits my friend. I'm watching him fly in the sky. I'm watching him hit the ground, and I'm this young kid, and I remember that night the news reporters were trying to get the story, right? They were trying to get their story. And I was so traumatized. It didn't feel real. That was my first time watching someone die. Like, I watched the blood drip from his eyes, and I beat on his mother's door, and I heard her scream once I told her the news. Right. So after that, I knew, like, okay, the media is twisting stuff, because the you know what the print said the next day, bro?
What's that?
They said 2 young men were playing chicken in the road.
What?
Because I didn't leave a story. My parents said, leave him alone. He's just
Yeah.
a little boy. Leave him alone. And the story came out that we were playing chicken in the road, and that's when the car hit him. And it was a young Caucasian guy, about 16, with a permit, and you know what? I tried to Google the event, Google the day. I couldn't find any record of the stuff. So, but I shared that because I related with you and your story with your cousin, even though you were far away. It's the emotional impact and the scar on our memory, because now this date, this time, is a memory of something that was traumatic. We're losing people. When you lose people, they don't come back. They don't come back. So it is very traumatic to lose people you care about. And so that's why we're here on that subject. And when you mentioned death, Chris, I was like, man, I'm someone who, had my stint with PTSD. Similar, we've had PTSD, but different PTSDs.
Yep.
And we've had different trauma, but we've had different experiences with suicide, right? So all of that helps us relate to others because we made it through. So can you talk? I just mentioned a couple of things there, but can you talk about your mental health journey and why mental health is important to you?
Sure. And yeah, like you said, there's so many different ways I can attack that. So I'll just start, I guess, from the earliest part. Before I even understood mental health and even understood kind of suicidal ideation and things like that. Growing up, as I mentioned before, I grew up in the suburbs of Baltimore. And to be more specific for those who know the Baltimore area, I grew up in Harford County, in an area called Bel Air. And just north of us is Cecil County, where there's like a lot of KKK. Like, I have a friend's father who was at a gas station one time, white guy, and just they literally came up to him, hey, you want to come to a rally? Like, that's how open it can be out there.
Wow.
I had a skinhead living behind my house growing up. And so growing up in a white area, I felt too black for the white people. Though I'm an extrovert, I have tons of friends, but I still felt like I wasn't really part of the whole group, part of the whole community. But at the same time, I spent my summers in Baltimore where my family was. And I literally wasn't allowed out of the house a lot of times. They didn't think that I could handle myself in the Baltimore streets. They were probably right. But called me the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and like not Will, but Carlton.
Right, so, but Carlton, the cousin.
Yeah. Oh. So like, I didn't feel like I belonged with the black people. I didn't feel like I belonged with the white people. I felt as many friends as I had, I still felt super alone. And that then I think led to around 12 or 13, feeling like I wanted to end it all. And I literally wrote letters to family and different friends, and I had them in my closet. Actually, one of the letters I dropped in this girl's book bag as we were leaving school because I knew I was going to do it that night. Wow. And I went home that night and tried to take my life. I won't get into any specifics. I don't want to encourage anybody to take any actions, but whatever I tried to do, it didn't work. And I remember like this crazy thunderstorm happening while I'm trying to do it and it not happening, and me feeling like, you know what, that's God. I grew up in the black church and I'm like, oh, that's him telling me, oh, I'm not allowed to take my life right now. I'm supposed to be here. And that was the last time I actually tried to take my life, but it's not the last time I thought about it mentally. And so looking back in hindsight, I now know, in talking to family, that we actually have a family history of depression, and we just never talked about it. And I think part of that not talking about it comes from, you don't want to encourage. It's kind of like I was saying, I don't want to talk about about my suicide. You don't want to encourage those in your family to be that way. And I think sometimes that miseducation around depression, that it can be learned. Like, it's a chemical balance a lot of the time. And so if I can understand that I'm not the only one going through this, I may not try to take my life because I felt alone. But if somebody would have made me understand that, no, you actually have other family members who have committed suicide or actually, tried, or just are going through these tough kind of mental situations as depression. But mine actually is more what's called dysthymia, more this long-term depression where it can last like 2-3 years at a time. And so now, again, hindsight, I can understand where I was. And now with my family, especially the younger generation, trying to talk more openly about these things so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we feel alone because of these depression kind of feelings. And so I guess that's where it starts from. And then I can get into other things. I don't want to take us on too many.
That's a good place right there, you know, because just number one, just thank you for sharing that once again, because sharing the scars help people see that, wow, you know, I have something similar. You know, when you're at the, you know, when you're younger or something, and you just got the first cut on your face or something, or you know, you took your Band-Aid off and you show your friends, man, look at this, and they were like, man, or you know, more so like, let's say, cut on your knee or something like that. Man, I got this cut on my knee too, man. You know, it's a similar, it's a scar. You know, like I said, it's similar. We're going through trauma, we're going through PTSD, we're going through suicidal ideation. You know, we're experiencing trauma on all ends and each side of life, right? And we're showing each other our scars. That's the beautiful part about this journey called life, is because I don't know what park you just left, Chris, but I know when I left the park, man, and I was on that swing and I was trying to get high up in that swing and I bust my butt, you know. But let me tell you about that story. That's how I like to share my trauma when I talk about, you know, like I too had God intervene, you know, when I had the gun in my mouth. You know, when I had the pills on my bed, the Bible on my nightstand, paranoia tiptoeing through the hallway of my home. Like I was in the place where I wanted to kill myself as well, my brother. And like, so when you share that, I understand. And it makes me want to get to know you even more, because you and I have been in a place to where we understand the dark side of life, where death is popping its head up and it's like, I'm all around you, you know, and we can feel its presence, you know, and that I feel has awoken this sense of life that's inside of us. And I see it in everything that you do. From having DCP Entertainment, I can see that it is not just you that you're doing this for. You have your cousin, you have the lives of the people who have left this world innocently. You have, you know, so you're carrying all of this and you're doing it well, because it is purposed inside of you to do this, based on what you've been through and what you've come from. So that's, you know, say that on there,
man. No, thank you so much. And I think the way you said that's beautiful too. And it's something that it took me, I realized something that I've been doing a lot of my life. I'll say a lot of my adult life. And it's a good thing that I do, but I just never analyzed that this is what I was doing. So I am an extrovert, and I a lot of times will go out to a bar and make new friends. And a lot of times we get into like deep, serious conversations. This is like, I even go on first dates and we're talking about trauma. I don't know how it happens. And I still, you know, we still end up like being together. It's not like I scare them my trauma, but
come on.
I have this ability, whether it be born empathy or whether it just be learned empathy because of what I've been through, that I can sense when somebody has something that they want to get off their chest. And because I've been through so many different kind of traumatic experiences, I can pull from different parts of my life. And what I do is I'll express what I've been through. And all of a sudden, like, just like you were saying, oh, I've been through that too, or I've been through something similar. And all of a sudden you can see them kind of like, even though they're talking about something traumatic, they kind of perk up like, oh, I wanted to talk about this. Finally, I have someone to talk to about this without feeling guilty about bringing it up. So I think, you know, going through these experiences, you can sometimes now, once you get through the trauma of it, and I don't say through it because you don't always, you know, get to the other side. You're constantly managing it sometimes. But once you can kind of come to grips with what you've been through, you can now turn that negative into a positive for yourself and for others.
Yeah. Wow, that's a powerful. Let's give him some snaps, folks. Snap your hands. Snap your fingers with your ass. Snap your fingers. No, that's lovely and powerful, man. So I'm so glad that we got to talk about that, because we are in a place or a state of emergency in a sense, you know, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, because they're so stuck in that. There we go. All right. Okay. I'm over here pressing buttons trying to get back on track. I don't know what happened.
Oh, God. As long as it wasn't me, I was like,
Nah, I think my knee hit the table right here, and I was like, wait a second, he just froze, and I was like, oh, do I keep going? But we're back, man. I tell you what, every time something great is going on, it's just like this. It's like the static start happening. You know, it's like, all right, no, we're gonna slow it down. I swear, I've never had a pause interview since like season 1 when I was just getting started.
All is
But
well, man. I
yes,
roll with the punches. We're good.
yeah, we still here, baby. We take those hits, you
Yep.
know. But man, like I just think it's so important for all of us to be able to share what we've been through, because we're in a state of emergency, like I was saying, because you know, like COVID, 2020, like since then, millions of people died around the world, you know, and we don't even know all the people who have been impacted. You know, some people think it's a hoax, some people think it's a game or whatever. But I personally know a couple of people who have died. A friend of mine died, you know, and maybe I'm not even going to say it was because of COVID, but all I know is they had COVID and they died, you know, and I had COVID and I lived, right? So I think that when we look at everything that's going on, innocent black men and women being slain by the police, the people that are supposed to protect them, black people killing black people, other people hating black people because they don't think that we're worth it, you know, but they love what we produce. They love what we put out. You know, and it's a sad state of emergency, but black people have to wake up, you know, and the world has to wake up, because if the world doesn't recognize how crooked and ugly it is, then how are we going to fix ourselves? Yep. So white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, you have to wake up and say, hey, what am I doing that is projecting hate towards people of color, other people of color, and black people? We have to do the same thing. What am I doing to project hate on people of color? This last statement I'll say is I have a poem and I say, when was the last time you hung your brother or sister from a noose? You know, because we all in our minds or in our hearts do things and we say things like, oh, you know what, they deserved it, you know, because of where people are from.
Yep.
But so I see that as us hanging each other, because we don't have to pull the trigger to, you know, off someone. In a sense, we can cut them off from our heart by saying, hey, you know what, Trayvon Martin's family, like, you know, so what, you guys got to do what you got to do. No, we got to connect. We have to do better at connecting and uplifting each other. So,
and even when it's not as malicious as that, even when you're just saying, well, like you hear a news story, black man dies. Well, what did he do? The fact that you're assuming that he did something, problem as well.
That is a fact. And I'm one to call people out on that. I'm like, look what you're doing. Look what you're doing. It's because you're saying that, because, you know, now you want to know, oh, why was he at the store with his hoodie on, or why was she driving over there? Why didn't they put on their blinkers? It's like, well, dude, people do the craziest things. They shoot up places and they still live to tell a story. But you put a black person in an innocent situation and they die. But yeah, so you guys get the gist of that first part of what we're talking about. We're talking about traumatic experience, and it's a deep conversation that I love to have. But what I want to do is I want to ask you about your transitioning. You know, so we talked about your childhood, and I'm glad we got there, because that's a lot of meat. You could tell a lot about people based on their childhood, whether they're shy or whether they're extroverts. I'm an extrovert as well. I've always been an extrovert. But I've learned more podcasting because I've learned to listen. You know, so I can tell a lot about you, but I want you to tell us, like, I've seen interviews. I don't want to, I try to not to do an interview style interview, right? I try to make it different. So can you go into telling us, like, so Sirius XM, you have you're an intern. Well, before it was Sirius XM, you were an intern, and you have this process and journey of transitioning from intern into being hired full time, and to making a transition further to start your own company. So tell us about the person, Chris Colbert, in the midst of all of that. Like, how did you make these decisions to step into an internship, and how did you make a decision to stay full? You mentioned 1111, so I know that's in there again too. And we talked about it earlier, but I want you to go back there a little bit again and say why you chose to continue full time, and then how you got into DCP Entertainment.
Yeah, so I went to Seton Hall University for college, and I
Mm-hmm.
went there with the mission of getting into TV or radio. Like, I'm one of the fortunate few who like knew what I wanted to do when I was leaving high school. And
Yeah.
so I went to Seton Hall, and I think it was around my junior year, Sirius Radio at the time,
Mm-hmm.
Sirius and XM were separate. It was a young company. Most people had never even heard of Sirius at this point. I think this is
Yeah.
around 2005.
Yeah.
And they came to Sirius literally just begging for interns. And so I think it was only like 5 of us who showed up. All of us ended up getting internships. I was in the
Yeah.
comedy department. And at the time, like comedy department interns, loaded a bunch of comedy, helped to,
Mm-hmm.
Move some things around in the system. They, play comedy channels were basically like music channels, just instead of music, we had comedy in its place. So we were helping to schedule out that comedy and
Mm-hmm.
try to find new comedians that we should put on. And so like that was great. And my second semester, I wanted to stick in that same department.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny, HR actually wanted me to go work in a different department to get some different skill sets. I said, no, I really like it here.
Yeah.
And so as I started this internship, my bosses also were kind of like, well, you already learned all the basics.
Yeah.
And my boss at the time, white Irish guy, and I have to say that because of what I'm going to say next, I want to create this urban comedy channel, but I don't want it to be the white Irish guy's take on urban comedy. So essentially, I have this Black, Latino kind of, comedy channel, but I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And would you like to help me create this? I was like, yeah, I grew up watching Comic View. Well, grew up Def Comedy Jam
Comic
first,
View.
and then Comic View every night. I'd watch it at 10 p.m. at 1 a.m. Like I would watch both. Like that's how committed I was to watching comedy. So I was like, I can tell y'all what comedians to put on. Oh, this is gonna be amazing. So I did. I created a 5-minute demo, and it had like imaging and everything. So a comedy bit into like a little swoosh into the next thing, and so like I made a whole radio channel. And by the time I left, it was an hour-long demo. Wow. And my boss says, I think he's now gotten rid of this car, but the last time we talked, he said he still has that demo in his car because it was that good. And it's funny how life works sometimes, where this was 2006, summer of 2006. I was going into my senior year of college, and I didn't know that I was only allowed to intern for 2 semesters at Sirius. They don't allow you to have a third, because I guess at this point now they're becoming competitive. They want some new work in there. So I'm all upset. I'm like, I thought I was going to keep rolling this internship into a full-time job, and I'm like, plan this out differently. Yeah. I go back to school. Luckily, I had like taken lots of classes early on, so I only had like 12 credits left to graduate over 2 semesters. So I was just going to live my best senior life. I'm going to 6 credits this semester, 6 credits next semester, and just party the rest of the time. Right. And as I'm wrapping up that first semester, I get a call from my old boss saying, Jamie Foxx was just here. He wants to do an urban comedy channel, and it's basically the channel that you already created. Only difference is he wants to also put music on it. Do you want to come back for 3 months as a consultant to help start this channel? They also thought I had moved to Atlanta because my mom had moved to Atlanta at that time. Down there. I'm like, no, I'm still here. I actually barely have any classes. So I was working 3 days a week at Sirius and going to class the other 2 days. And it just so happened that we launched the Foxhole, Jamie Foxx's radio station, in May 2007. I graduated May 2007, and I got hired full-time at Sirius May 2007 as a production coordinator. Thank you, man. It's such a weird, like even telling that story, I don't even, I just lived that. Like it's just the craziness behind just the timing of all that. Yeah. But it's also taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. Yeah. I wanted to say here, right here, because, those are very pivotal moments in your life where you could have, taken less classes and decided to get another internship, and, life could have went a whole different way for you. And even to the point of you, saying, no, I'm going to stay here. I want to stay in this department. I want to do this. I like this. Right. Because you could have just been like, oh yeah, you know what? I'll go learn something else. So I just think it's awesome. I wanted to start right there because people could be in that same place right now where I'm in that similar place right now at work where it's like, oh, do you want to go here? Or do you want to go here? And I'm like literally thinking about what I want to do. And just talking to you right now is just giving me a whole 360 view, because it's like, well, the decisions we make now today really dictates what's going to happen or what's to come in the next 5 to 10 years of our lives, so. Yep. Yeah. And I would also say, though, like to take the pressure off of yourself or anybody else who might be going through it in terms of, I don't believe there's always necessarily a right decision. I think that you make a decision and then you make the best of that decision. Now you just, you've chosen a path. Now that you're on this path, now you got to make the right choices on this path that you're currently on. So don't worry so much about the what ifs, because you can't predict what would have happened otherwise. So just to take some of the pressure off a little bit.
I like that. A lot of people do have that pressure on them where they're like, oh man, I don't have a job right now and I don't know what's next. I think that when you do take that, I live like that, bro. Like I honestly live like that. I'm like, you know what? What's for me is for me. What's not for me is not for me. And sometimes we think everything is for us, like it's like walking into the grocery store when you're hungry. You think everything that's in front of you is supposed to go in your pocket, but yeah, so go ahead. Continue with your story.
Yeah, so I really want to tell that part in kind of a full breath, because I think that really was an amazing part of the journey. And I think it helped me inform me of kind of what came next. So I spent the next 11 years at Sirius, and went through the recession, which also happened at the same time as the merger. So the company actually almost went under at one point, and I was working super long hours, but I was getting to work on lots of different comedy channels. It also allowed me, I was doing Jamie Foxx's channel, but I also started 2 other comedy channels, a George Carlin radio station. I got to work with his family, which also was fortuitous because growing up, my aunt's favorite comedian was George Carlin. And to get to work on that, and my godmother, the one whose son is DCP. So it's like all these circle moments. Also got to run a channel called Urban View, really news, issues, politics for the Black community, which gave me a lot of connections for how I now started DCP. So eventually I went from production coordinator to producer to program director, all the way up to director of urban talk and comedy. And I breezed over this real quick, but when I was a program director, that was actually my career goal. I went into, I want to be a program director. I got at the age of 26, they finally gave me that title. I was doing the job at 24, but they gave me the job title by 26. And I was kind of like, well, what now? I already reached my career goal. What's next? And like, now you have to set new goals for yourself. And the new goal for me was less about a title and more about the impact that I wanted to make. And that impact was
rewind. I'm sorry, you got to rewind that. Go ahead.
So my goal stopped being about myself, and it became about the impact that I can make, not only for others at my company, but also the greater media landscape. And so it first started with, yes, at the company I work with, I want to help to get people better salaries. I want to get people better opportunities, and in particular, people of color. And then I also want to make sure that hosts of color and I started realizing it wasn't just people of color, but LGBTQ hosts and people who are women, people who are disabled, all these other marginalized communities aren't even getting if they do have a show, they're not getting the same level of talent booking, the same level of marketing and promotion. It becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy when a company, and not to say that, I was working at Sirius, but across the media landscape, it's this self-fulfilling prophecy that is out there that, oh, this community doesn't invest in this kind of content, or, they're not going to buy radios or TV, they're not going to buy a TV subscription. But if you don't market it and give them something that they need and want, then yes, they're not going to want it. And so I wanted to help change that culture. And I tried to do that from within. And I got to a certain point of realizing that, I've climbed the corporate ladder. I'm now the director of urban talk and comedy, which is the politically correct way of saying I ran Black and Latino talk programming for Sirius XM. I realized that even the people who are most well-intentioned don't necessarily know how to help me make this change within the company. And so also, because it's not just a company issue, it's a media issue as a whole. I need to leave this company to be able to do what I need to do for the greater good for our communities, for our marginalized communities, not just people of color. And so that's when I started DCP Entertainment in the background when I was at Sirius. I got the LLC in 2015, but I didn't leave Sirius XM until 2017. And the idea was I was going to, because now I was at a point where I was making actually good money. I was making 6 figures. My bonus at the time was actually $10,000 more than my first salary at Sirius. Like, come on now. So, and I had stock options. So I'm going to get my last bonuses, get my last stock options, and then I'm going to put all this money into my new company. 4 months before I could even do that, or maybe it was 6 months, a company called Cadence 13, a podcast company, actually hired me away. They, wanted me to, I was doing more documentary work at Sirius. I was also trying to help Sirius start a documentary division. Because I was kind of self-teaching myself documentaries, but we had somebody at the company on a different channel that actually came from the documentary world. It's like, oh, if I can set up this documentary division, they can take this over and we can start a whole new thing here. But before I could really do all that, I guess word got out about it. And this company came along and hired me to head up their documentary podcast division. Cadence 13. And that was my introduction in 2017 to the podcast world. And one thing I kind of skimmed over is that DCP originally was going to be a documentary video company. I was going to start with a homeless documentary that I really wanted to create, and I'm still going to create. But when I got into podcasting, I realized, oh my gosh, these were all the things that we were trying to do at Sirius before we, got merged with XM and things got so big and corporate. It lost some of the creativity that we had. Podcasting has that creativity and has that mechanism to speak to people organically, much like you do in this podcast here, where it's not an interview, it's a conversation.
Right.
Either I'm a fly on the wall to the conversation, or you're speaking to my life. You're speaking about the things that I'm also living in my own experiences. And so it's re-energized me within the industry of, okay, not only is there's this place I can use my full creativity, but also here's a young part of the industry, podcasting being young relatively to TV, radio, and all that, where we can make the change that we want to see now before having to course correct 10 years or 20 years down the line. So if we can create the equity now, it's going to be so much easier than trying to fix it, decades down the road. And so like, I want to be part of that change. And that's where DCP came in, is this company that is all about what we call underrepresented communities and conversations, those people of color, women, LGBTQ plus, people with disabilities, but also centering our conversations around self-care, mental and emotional well-being, these conversations that especially in like 2017 felt very taboo, especially among communities of color. So that's where DCP was born.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. So I'm guessing a book is coming out soon, or what? Like
I a book. I feel like if it's gonna be me, it's got to be an audio book, and
okay, you can do the audio book though. I mean, you got to do what you can do. Don't do what you can't do. Do what you can do. So, but that's a beautiful story, and I'm glad that your life played out the way it did. And like earlier on, you mentioned that when you made that decision, or when your mom told you to look up at the clock and it was 11:11, and you were trying to make that decision, and I think that's awesome. And I don't even know if you noticed, but you said 11 years at Sirius, like you were. I was like, right? You didn't notice that?
I did not even notice that. That's amazing.
Yeah, bro. I was reading through your stuff, and like you mentioned 11:11, with your mom, and then you mentioned 11 years, and then I was like, oh man, this 11 is really popping in his life.
That's super crazy that my sister told me 2 years ago. I didn't know this. My sister is also an entrepreneur. She started her company, Fishnet. It's a Baltimore restaurant. So anybody who's down in Baltimore, go check out Fishnet. Amazing food.
I'm going to Baltimore.
Oh, please do. So Fishnet downtown, you're gonna love it. But she started her company on 11/11/11.
Wow.
And had no clue about the significance when she did it.
Wow. That's crazy. And it's still going on to this day?
Yeah. Oh yeah, till this day.
Wow.
And again, it's just, as I'm, just having decisions that I'm trying to make, it's not a conscious thing. I'm not looking for it. I'll just, think about it, and I'll look up and the clock either says 11:11, or maybe there's some, notification that pops up at 11:11. It's just these weird coincidences that I don't fully believe in coincidences. I believe that, there's these things that's almost your intuition telling you what it is you need to do, or the spiritual world that is helping to guide you down the right path. And you have to open up your eyes and your ears to the opportunities that might be there. I started to take up one other tangent, but there's this study.
No, go ahead.
I can't remember exactly where it came from, but they took these two groups of 10 people. 10 people said that they're unlucky, and 10 said that they are lucky. And they all gave them newspapers. And in that newspaper, it was like a little blurb somewhere within the paper that said, you won $1 million. And the people who said that they're lucky, 8 out of 10 people found that little thing. The people who said they're unlucky, only 2 out of 10. Because they weren't looking for it. They already decided what was going to be their outcome. And so they kind of gave up before they even had the opportunity in front of them. And so I try to live by that mind state of, I'm going to look for the opportunities. And even when there's something that you might see as a failure, I see it as a learning experience and or an opportunity to try something different.
Come on now, y'all. Chris Colbert, y'all better be paying for these seats to be listening in on this man right here, son. Man, you gonna do a TED talk one day? I will be in the audience. I gotta be there.
I'm working on one, by the way.
Huh?
I am working on a TEDx.
Okay, cool. So I didn't spoke that. So like you said, hey, look, I'm just connecting it with what's out there in the atmosphere. But so I think it's just number one, amazing that you took this step. And I want to talk about this step into DCP Entertainment, because a lot of people, they recognize that there's this thing inside. We see something wrong within a system, and then we say like, oh, you know what, this is wrong. this is not right, you know, and then we don't think about the fact that we are the person or the people that could, in fact, bring this change to the system based on what we do in our own personal lives, you know. So you starting your own company, you know, you could have went into it with a small person's mindset, you know, or a small mindset, and saying, you know what, this is just going to be something, and I'm going to, you know, see what happens, right? But you had a mission. There was there was a purpose behind what you were doing, and you understood why it needed to be created. And I feel like once you understand the why into what we are doing as entrepreneurs, as we're hustling in this entrepreneur hustle, you know, no pun intended, but but you know, as we're doing this hustle, man, when we understand why, and we believe, we have some faith and believe that we are lucky, and not just lucky but blessed to be here, to have this life, then everything that we desire, I feel like, will be at our feet and is at our feet. We just have to wait through the process, you know. But what was your mindset through this process? You know, like you're starting a company, you're doing something new. You know, you had your finances good for, you know, so what was the mindset like though? What was that mindset making that transition?
I think, you know, much like you were kind of saying, there are certain things that I was fortunate to have. And so, you know, when I was at this company, Cadence 13, I was there for 11 months, not even a full year.
11 months, just to let you know.
Wow, there it is again.
You gotta stop playing with me. You doing this 11 thing.
I swear I don't even try to do this. Wow, that is crazy. Like, I'm gonna have to take a step back after this interview and just really take it all in. This is amazing. But I was there for 11 months, and they, you know, sold me on this whole thing. If you're only going to work, you know, 40 hours a week, I was working 70-hour work weeks again. And but at the same time, I was still trying to get my company off the ground in the background. And so we were doing some work with some of the contacts that I had from Sirius, because I had been heading up their Black and Latino programming. I had a lot of celebrity contacts, and one of them was Joy Reid. You know, we tried to do something together while I was at Sirius. It didn't necessarily work out. And so she was doing her own podcast, and we started helping her out with that. And then I had other, you know, influencers, celebrities reaching out to me saying, hey, I heard you left Sirius. And I'll step back for 1 second too. Like, when you're at a major company like that, you don't always know if people want to work with you or they want to work with the name on the marquee. And after I left, I realized my value, because people were reaching out to me to say, oh my gosh, you're gone from Sirius. Now we can really work together. You don't have this, you know. So it's like, oh, you wanted me. And so now that's when I decided, all right, I can go all in for myself now, because I actually have a repertoire of people that can now be on the roster of this company. And also that even if it's not right out of the gate, I have the ability to get these kind of people in. And so, like, that was the mind state going in, that, okay, I've actually already accomplished a lot in my career. And I have a reputation in this industry that I didn't necessarily know I had. And so now I can leverage that as I move forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you realize that you already have the equipment and tools that you need inside of your toolbox, that you've been, you know, we do things, we do jobs. And I started to see my life in this way. Like, okay, I was an electrician, I was a Marine, I did this, I did that. And like, you know, we never see how they all connect. You know, but I think the beautiful thing is when you're able to connect where you are now to what you've been through, it adds more value, right? When you think about the process of something being created, you don't want the fast food, you know, the fast food, they'd be like, hey, can I get a burger? And you're already chopping on the burger, you know, instantly. But when you go to that restaurant, you like, yo, I want a steak, I want some lobsters and some shrimp, you know what I mean, with some mashed potatoes, right? And they in the back, they be in the kitchen cooking, right? They're cooking. And you like, man, I can smell it. It smells so good, right? You know, and I just shared something about Kurt Franklin was talking about something similar as well. But when you have something marinating, when it's marinating, so when we look at our lives, and I listen to your story and your life, and I'm looking at the product being marinated, when I'm looking at Chris Colbert, you know, being marinated into his purpose, into what he's purposed to do in this world. And like he said, he got to one place and I accomplished this. But now what is out there that I really want to do? Because you realize at that point that was just an anchor to get you to where you need to be, so that you can go to where people need you to be, right? And that's called purpose, being in your place and purpose. You know, so Chris, he was doing his purpose journey. He got through internship, he got to those high places and high ranking in the corporate American ladder. And he got to that place, and you know what? This wasn't even the purpose for me climbing this. The purpose was what I got in this bag. You know, I got in this bag right here. All right. Anyway, I'm getting all excited about it. But yeah, man, I'm just like, because I see it. You know, but yeah, man. So that's just motivation. I hope it motivates people out there. Like, please don't give up on what you are doing. My motto is never stop, never quit, repeat. And I say that because I realize if you never quit and you repeat, you get up every day and you go at it every day. When you look back 5 years from now, and 5 years is short, you'll be like, man, I'm glad I never quit. You know, so I look at Chris and I'm like, this dude never quit. Yeah, I got to send you that shirt now. But so Chris, man, like, so you're in a space where you're giving people a platform, or not even giving, but you're providing people with a platform to do what they do best. You know, I was talking to my wife earlier. I was like, man, I got to think about things in my life. You know, I might have to talk to Chris and see what we could do with the Purpose Pod. And, you know, but I was like, man, but there's the Michael Finkley show, and there's the Courtney's Corner. And I know all of these people who are doing shows and podcasts. And I was just talking to Michael Finkley the other day, and I was like, bro, I want to start. I wasn't even thinking about what you got going on over there. I was like, man, I think we gotta get like a network or something. I'm on the phone talking to him. I'm like, we gotta get a network. We gotta be on like TV. We gotta have like all day, every day. People can come to this like one YouTube channel and they could get all of our shows on that channel. And I told my wife this morning, I was like, you know what? I just connected what I've been saying to what Chris has right here. And I was like, I gotta talk to Chris more. Yeah, you know, but we're definitely gonna talk about that. But for my friends out there who have shows and podcasts, how do you, number one, decide who you want to work with? Because the values have to align and the vision has to align. So how do you decide who you want to work with, and how can those who have podcasts learn about, you know, getting into DCP Entertainment?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we still are a small company, so there's only so many shows that we can take on, and that's part of why in everything that we do, we're constantly trying to uplift other networks, especially networks that are like ours, trying to help these marginalized communities, but also uplifting independent podcasters. But in terms of like what we look for individual shows that we're bringing on the network, it's funny, like people love to ask me, like, what are you looking for? I'm never looking for something specific. I'm looking for something that hasn't been done yet. And so I'm not going to be able to ideate that necessarily, because those are going to, especially in podcasting, those things are going to come from your life experiences. And I think, you know, we have an incredible host, especially in the Black Voices vertical, but I want to start doing more with the LGBTQ plus community, which we have a few more shows there now. I want to do more with the disabled community. We've only had one host, Lacey Henderson, who is an Olympian, who's, you know, been able to speak on that, but we need to do more there. It's actually the biggest, it's the biggest, what they call minority in the world, because you can come from it from all different ethnicities and backgrounds, have you. So we want to do more in those spaces. I will say kind of like the algorithm that I have in my head of when I'm looking at a new show is, or just looking at our total roster, is we need to have some shows where they are big names or they're influencers or a big brand. And that helps us bring audiences to the shows that maybe we don't know who the host is if I just mention their name, but what they're trying to do, the stories that they're telling are so unique and so needed that now we can feed that audience from this top performing show or this influencer, bring them to this other show. So it's a kind of a balancing act that we're always trying to play with our totality of programming and making sure that we have shows that can cross promote within the network. But even then, we have other networks that we can cross promote with. So I think for me, the big thing is, are you doing something that's not being done in the space? Or even if it's being done in the space, can you do it from either a different angle or speak more authentically to it? Because a lot of times you have these white companies trying to speak to, say, a Black audience in a way that doesn't speak to the way that we actually live our lives, and doesn't necessarily come from that authentic space that really is going to help to fulfill the mission that they're trying to accomplish. And so, hey, if you can do that, kind of show more authentically and have the right kind of voices and the right kind of topics, then let's talk and figure out if there's a way to do something together.
Dope. So y'all make sure I hit them up. You know, I'm gonna play this snippet. You know, I'm gonna play that I'm gonna frame that right there, and I'm gonna put it out there for y'all. I know Dr. Lulu. I don't know if you know Dr. Lulu, but we do. She's a part of my Visionaries Vibing with Vulnerability on Instagram. We do this like live every now and then. But Dr. Lulu, I definitely want to just connect y'all because she can go into the LGBTQ community. She deals with parents of queer students, and like just she's an advocate for the LGBTQ community. So I definitely got to make that connection. But so overall, how do you go and or I question. This question just came out of the fresh thin air, the heavens. So because I'm thinking about like Dr. Lulu, and people are always attacking, like it seems like people are always attacking her and what she stands for and what she supports. So how do you, as a Black male, how do you deal with, the, I guess, the hate that comes for standing for something so great as what you stand for?
Thank you. It's funny. It's the same question I ask of others. So I actually kind of learn from them sometimes.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one is just try not to internalize that stuff. Some people want to try to get famous or not even famous, but they just want to get a few likes off of trying to tear you down. Like that, very much in this country, especially, love to build people up and tear them down. So I just always have that in the back of my mind, especially because I've been around celebrities a lot in my adult life. And so I've kind of gotten to see through their eyes of how you just kind of have to brush these things off. You can't take them personally. But I'd say the other is I challenge them sometimes. And I do so, especially like with a say their name. I'll use this specific incident where people will be like, well, why are you only focusing on Black people being killed by police violence? And I will say to them, well, we're a small company with a limited budget, and these are very complicated stories to tell. If you notice, we only tell 8 to 10 stories in a given season, and then I have to wait a whole another year to put out a new one. That's a lot of time and effort. And so with our limited resources, we can do this. But hey, by all means, please, do one for the Latino community, and feel free to reach out to me and I will give you advice on how to do it. I will help cross promote you. We're not against anybody else getting their stories out, but I have to take care of me and my people because that's the stories I know how to authentically tell. And that's the community that I need to make sure I look out for because I belong to it. I still want to look out for these other communities, but I got to start here first. And so, that is kind of one way I challenge people. And almost every time I challenge them and say, hey, I will help you create that thing that you're saying that we don't do, they almost always shut up and never say another thing. Even like
because they don't want to do the work.
Oh, exactly. In our first season, unfortunately, of Say Their Name, we didn't highlight any women. There was actually a woman Corinne Gaines, who's in season 2. We were supposed to do that in season 1, but unfortunately, the family just wasn't ready in season 1. And there were other women that we were trying to reach out to, and their lawyers or their families never got back to us. So it wasn't that we weren't trying to focus on women, but a few people called us out for it. And what I said to them is, you are absolutely right. We need to focus on more women. Can you help me identify more women that we can talk to? Do you have any contacts that we can talk to? Again, they never responded, but but we did end up connecting with people who could help us there. But it's interesting. I love to. It's kind of like a passive aggressive thing I do just in regular life too. Like if someone challenges me and says I'm not doing something, I will say, well, how can I help you do it then?
Right.
And they always shut down because it wasn't about the goal. They just wanted to be.
Come on. And a lot of people just want to do that. There's like gnats, like they just got to be in everything, and just gnats are like, you just don't want gnats around. You having a great day in the sun and just gnats just come everywhere and they all in your face and stuff, but it's real, and we can't let people, sway us from doing what we are called to do in this world. So I love what you stand for, Chris. I love how you operate in your business, and just going through your websites and looking at the social media platforms, looking at the content from the other podcasters out there. Like it's a beautiful thing. And I want people to make sure that they connect with you. So you guys make sure you connect with DCP Official and check Chris and his family out. They are a dope group of people. And I hope that like we all take a lot from what we talked about today. Like this is a very powerful conversation. But before I ask my last question, I have one more question I want to ask you. I want to play my little video real quick. I haven't gotten slick like y'all. Y'all got your little commercial Geico on there. Flow here. I'm just playing, but I'm gonna get my little commercials one day. But I'm gonna play this real quick and we'll be right back. Cool. So that's my little thing right there, my little twinkle twinkle little star thing. No,
You
but yeah, but man, Chris, so like I really enjoyed this conversation with you. Just like when I came into this, I got papers over here. I was like, man, I got to be ready. This guy's official. I got other paper down here. I'll just play. This was my notes from some of that. But I was like, man, I got to get right because Chris is the real deal, man. He's been in this. He's been running. He's been leading people, man. So I had to get right. But when I came on, I was also excited because I knew you do this. I knew that when I was listening to you and say their name, and I'm like, man, this guy can connect with people. He is authentic. He cares. So I was like, man, I'm excited about this interview because I'm not even going to do a regular like, oh, tell me about your track history when you were doing this and when you wanted to play. You did want to play the NBA.
I did want to,
yeah. We didn't get to mention that, but yeah, I wanted. But yeah, I saw the flow of interviews and stuff, but I wanted to give you something a little different. I hope that it was different for you. And but yeah, so my last question that I love to ask is, what do you want your legacy to be?
First, I'll say yes. This has been an incredible time. So yes, you hit on your purpose. You hit on your. What do I want my legacy to be? I think I'd answer that in two different ways. I want my legacy to be within the media space. I want it to be. I guess these two things are related, but within the media space, I want to create more equity. I want people to say that, Chris helped to further opportunities for other marginalized communities.
Yeah.
And I think that relates to how I want to be remembered in life in general. And it's the Maya Angelou quote that I mess up every single time, which is, people don't remember you for what you do for them. It's how you make them feel. And that's what I want my legacy to be, is how I've made people feel and hopefully feel included and make them feel heard and seen. So that's the legacy I want to leave behind.
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing, and that you're so selfless acts, because that's how I know your business is going to be really successful. It's going to be successful because the value is the people, and then with that, your value goes up. The money that you were making before, has no match on the money you're going to be making, in the near future because of the consistency and because of the rawness and realness of what you're doing, and also the authentic heart you have to connect with other people is amazing. So I know that you're gonna kill the game, and like I know that look, bro, I'm right. I'm here now, so look, I'll put my hook in. I'll put my hook in now. I'm like, all right, Chris, where we going? What's up? So we're gonna talk business,
yes, sir.
For sure. But any last closing words, like any special? Dang, I think you had something that you had wanted me to put on here. Special announcements. Anything you want people to know?
I kind of forget if I did tell you something, but I will say for those of you who are, in the podcasting, I'm actually recording this right now in our studio. So one of the things that we did for DCP, because I'm always trying to think about what's next. I don't want to be, on the bandwagon. I want to be leading the train. And so I saw podcasting going into video. So we have a podcasting space here in New York City. It's called Podstream Studios, Times Square. We're literally on 46th Street and Broadway, overlooking the ticket steps. But we have a customizable studio. This is actually my entrepreneur struggle setup. It's one of my other podcasts. But in the New York City area, you need a place to record. Even if you're trying to do a live event, we got you out here. So yeah, we're going beyond just what we're trying to do in the podcast space in terms of informing, but also giving people a facility to do their own shows.
Okay, so hey, look, the Purpose Pod Live is coming soon. So I just want to let y'all know I'm gonna be traveling, and doing interviews. So I got to make my first stop, or one of my stops in New York, over to you. So we're gonna talk about that. I have to make that happen too. And I trust that y'all will, lead me in the right direction out there, brother. Brother Moses of the podcast industry.
You're doing an incredible job so far, man. So it's not gonna be hard. It's not gonna be hard to give you a few tips and tricks.
I appreciate it. And then, so the last, I'm like a Baptist pastor out here. The last word from the book of Jeremiah. No,
I'm used to it. When
people are like, we're gonna wrap it up.
That means we got another hour and a half left.
Yeah, just put that hand up. That one more thing. But I wanted you to be able to have an opportunity to, number one, inspire, instruct, or whatever you want to do with the audience right now. Like any last words, any words of encouragement, just whatever you want to do right now. I'm giving the floor to you.
I'm going to go back to something I said a little bit earlier, but I think if you have the ability, it's really tough. It's sometimes a luxury to do this, but take a step back in your life and take a look at the things that you've been through, those traumatic experiences, and understand that these traumatic experiences, yes, you yourself need to heal and go through them, but now look at them and figure out how can these tools, because that's what they become. Look at these tools and how can you utilize them to help others who may have gone through something similar, or how has it opened up your eyes to see the world in a different way, and now you can fulfill your real purpose, which, you know, I cannot tell you what your purpose is, but I truly believe that our past experiences, our childhood experiences, those traumatic experiences, and even the good ones, inform what we're supposed to do in our life to help enhance the world, enhance others around us. And so, yeah, that's where I'd like to leave it. Let your life's purpose be informed by your past experiences and those traumatic events that, you know, you were able to see the way through.
Come on, give him some finger snaps. The poet, podcast Moses. That's what I was trying to think of today. I was like, podcast Moses. Come on, now, lead us through the waters. But yeah,
that one, I like that.
You like that one? Podcast Moses. He's gonna have a whole show coming out. This is Podcast Moses, coming by Chris Colbert. Yeah, Chris. So I'm gonna close out the show, and but stick around in the background for a second, please. I'm gonna close out the show, and then I'll end it with you, and then we'll wrap it up like that. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so everybody, Chris Colbert. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Purpose Pod. It was an amazing interview. I connected with Chris. I hope you connected with Chris as well. He's an amazing brother doing amazing things. So y'all, please go follow him. And I should have put his Instagram up there. It is Chris Colbert Report, right? See, Chris, I do my studies, dog. I'm gonna put it right here. Colbert Report. You don't have to capitalize that C like I did right there. Bam. Chris Colbert Report. Right? That's right, Chris. Shake your head. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's right there, folks. So y'all make sure y'all connect with Chris on the Instagram. Hit the brother up and let him know that you see him. And I'm going to definitely keep promoting him, and I'm going to promote his company and the people inside of his company, because they're doing great things. I'm telling you, great things. But let me go ahead and get with these shout outs real quick. Let me put this down real quick right down. So my first shout out goes to my boy DJ DAVI. DJ DAVI killed it on the ones and twos like always. I see Chris in the back clapping his hands. We enjoyed that. We was about to turn up for your boy. And I just want to let y'all know to never stop, never quit, repeat. Shout out to my boy Foday and our sponsor Red at 28th in Charlotte. If you're in Charlotte, please go to Red at 28. Get a hookah, get a drink, and get your dance on. Those my people out there. They look out for me and I look out for them. Yo, Nikki, that's why I got this fresh cut right now. Shout out to Cuts by Nikki here in Durham, North Kakalaka. Shout out to my boy Jamal Lanham, the photographer. Man, look at this picture right here, boy. This is the Purpose Pod Can I Speak book, and we out here grinding like always. We trying to be like Moses out here, the Moses of the podcast land, Chris Colbert. Shout out to my 49er family, Dean Davis. Shout out to her. Hey, Cool People Network, make sure you connect to this app. It's a platform where Cool People Network, media, news, entertainment, all of that. Y'all make sure you check your boy out. I'm going to be out here with my boy Reese. We're going to be performing in Durham. We're going to be in Greensboro. We're going to be all over Raleigh. So y'all make sure y'all check us out. And last but not least, shout out to Hey Ty app for Black news and petty gigs. Hey, look, if you want to do a petty gig, if you want to walk a dog, wash a car, whatever you want to do, you can go on petty gigs and make some side change. Yeah. So I am your host, Mr. Never Stop, Never Quit, Repeat, Alan Levi Simmons. And I hope that you enjoyed the Purpose Pod, and I hope you enjoyed Chris Colbert's story. Please connect with him. Like I said again, DCP Official, connect with them. And make sure you share this video and tell a friend about the Purpose Pod. I will see you all in 2 weeks. Peace.